Well, I'm an activist, and really the reason for me to take on culture was because it works. It's one of the most powerful tools there is. It's evocative, it influences people, people register, and it leaves a lasting impression if you're good at what you do. One of the other reasons for trying culture is because it's subversive. I think it's very effective at finding cracks through which you can get ideas across. You can work out mechanisms through which to do things which conventional systems would fail at. On the other hand, it's hugely rewarding. As an artist, one gets great satisfaction out of doing things which one considers to be worthwhile. In terms of why what's happening here is relevant to me, when we started working, we were really challenging Western norms in terms of how majority world countries were represented. We were challenging stereotypes about people like ourselves. Having decided that we would move the agency to where the photographers were, as opposed to the usual case of the photographers going to the agencies, we'd given ourselves a difficult task because we were far away, physically removed from the marketplace. And new media was the natural choice for overcoming some of that. But what's very interesting in the process is while new media on the one hand has given us the opportunity to short-circuit some of these mechanisms, to reach out to a wider public, to have greater effectiveness and greater control over our own work. In some ways, it's also the potential threat, because today agencies like Getty, agencies like Corbis are these huge conglomerates that work like shopping malls do, like Tesco's and the big arcades. And agencies such as ours, like corner drugstores, get threatened because we can't survive against these huge corporations unless we're much more flexible than they are, much more witted than they are, and in a way, unless we're able to use guerrilla tactics in trying to overcome these imbalances. Well, certainly it's been an excluded audience for a large extent, and there are two areas. One is the youth, the other is the textually literate. I mean, textual literacy largely is about the urban elite, at least in poorer countries. And because there's been so much emphasis on textual literacy, a large population has been sidelined in the process. My grandmother's told me stories, my mother's told me stories. I've grown up in a storytelling culture, yet that culture of storytelling through performance, through music, through visuals, has largely been denied until more recently. So new media allows those alternative modes of literacy to come across, which I find very effective and powerful. In terms of youth, of course, the fact that they take onto new media so much more effectively and quickly than older generations have done make it ideal. But I actually look at it from a more philosophical perspective. I think one of the core attributes of new media is that it is non-hierarchical, that it moves sideways, that it extends in a manner in which traditional technologies have not been able to do. And I think if the youth, along with the technology, are also able to take on the ideology and the philosophy of an equal world where things move sideways, I think that would be a major shift in our thinking. I think the fossils need to wake up, and I think the youth also need to take on certain shifts in their behavior. While they're very good at taking on new media, that while they're very good at adapting to these changes, they're also sometimes very fickle. And the fact that what we're talking about are serious issues that require hanging on in there and being there for the long term are things that they need to take on board as well.
And you mentioned about the project you're working on, the project themed with freedom. Mm-hmm. And how is that coming about, and how is that related to culture?
Well, freedom is fundamentally what we've been about from the beginning. I mean, in a very unequal world, people talk about poverty, but they forget that poverty is a function of exploitation. And in a situation like that, it is the removal of freedom from some people that creates freedom for others. So the whole issue needs to be tackled, be a visual people. So what we're doing is putting together a festival of photography where we will have photography, of course, but also films and debates and seminars and discussions. But one of the interesting things that we will do, which again new media allows, is on the opening we have a fascinating video conference between Maheshwar of India, one of India's leading writers and activists, Noam Chomsky in Boston, and Stuart Hall in the UK, and I think it's going to be a fabulous event.